Principle number 5, individual liberties. The final principle we will discuss is individual liberties. The big idea of individual liberties is that the rights of the people limit the power of the government. You can think of these as protections from government built into the Constitution. There are some specific protections mentioned in the original draft of the Constitution, which we will look at first, and there are many more added as amendments or changes to the Constitution very early in our country's history. We call these early amendments, the first 10 amendments, the Bill of Rights. We will take a look at those later. The first right specifically mentioned in the original draft of the Constitution is what's called a writ of habeas corpus. This means that if a person is arrested, he has the right to be brought in front of a judge and told the charges against him. This may seem very basic, but in the days of the American Revolution, kings ruled most nations on earth, and habeas corpus was not a fundamental right. Imagine being arrested without knowing why, and being sentenced to prison without a trial. Habeas corpus ensures that this will never happen to an American citizen. American citizens who are arrested and know why, and they always receive trials. The Constitution also protects U.S. citizens against ex post facto, or after-the-fact laws. This means that citizens cannot be punished for doing something that was not illegal when they did it. The Constitution guarantees citizens a trial by jury in federal cases. The Constitution also superficially forbids any religious qualifications for holding office. Soon after the Constitution was ratified, 10 amendments were added. These first 10 amendments are called the Bill of Rights because they lay out additional rights not specified in the original text of the Constitution. The original purpose of the Bill of Rights was to protect citizens from the national government only. Today, because of court rulings, the Bill of Rights protects U.S. citizens from both state and national government. Let's take a look at the basic meaning of the 1st, 2nd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 8th, and 9th Amendments. Let's begin our look at the Bill of Rights with the First Amendment. The text of the First Amendment reads, "Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble, and to petition the government for a redress of grievances." There are a lot of important ideas in there that I will carefully explain in 4 parts. The first part of the First Amendment is about freedom of religion. This freedom has 2 parts. The first part is that the U.S. government may not establish an official religion. This is referred to as the Establishment Clause. It is unconstitutional for the government to force its citizens to practice any particular religion. For example, it would be unconstitutional to force everyone in the United States to be Lutheran or Buddhist or any other faith. The second part is that Americans have the right to practice religion. This is known as the Free Exercise Clause. Another part of the First Amendment concerns speech. In general, citizens may say what they want without fear of being arrested. However, restrictions do apply. The government may restrict speech based on the time, place, or manner of the speech. For example, let's say you're in a crowded theater and you stand up and yell "fire" when there isn't one, and people get hurt as the crowd stampedes out the door. You won't be able to defend yourself successfully by saying you were just exercising your freedom of speech. The court would rule that your use of the words did nothing but endanger people's lives. In other words, the time and place were not acceptable. The First Amendment also covers the freedom of the press, to specifically protect newspapers, magazines, and other media outlets. The media is often seen as a sort of watchdog over the government, reporting the good and the bad. Our founders believed that it was important for the media to be able to perform this job without fear of being arrested. Citizens also have the freedom of assembly, thanks to the First Amendment. This means that citizens can gather to protest for any reason they wish, Like with speech, there may be restrictions based on time, place, and manner. For example, let's say you want to hold a rally for animal rights. A city might say you need to get a permit in advance to hold the rally in a public park because the police have to prepare for the crowd. It cannot say, though, that you can never hold the rally because you have the right to freedom of assembly. Finally, the First Amendment allows citizens to petition the government. This means that people have a right to tell the government what they think. Now consider using this memory aid to remember the First Amendment. Why can these guys say what's on their mind? It's because of the First Amendment, of course. Just remember the acronym RAPS, with 2 P's, to remind you of the 4 pieces of the First Amendment. R is for freedom of religion, A is for freedom of assembly, P is for freedom of petition, the extra P is for freedom of the press, and the S is for the freedom of speech. The Second Amendment of the Constitution is the right to bear arms. What types of arms, meaning weapons, is a constant point of debate today. Here are a few ways you might be able to remember the Second Amendment. Think guns come after one being the First Amendment. Or try to remember any of these funny images that express the concept literally. Here's some pictures of bare arms, meaning unclothed arms. And here's a picture of a bear with little arms. Even stranger, here's a drawing of a man with the arms of a bear. Any or all of these images may trigger the memory of what the Second Amendment is all about. Now let's take a look at the Fourth Amendment. The Fourth Amendment protects citizens against unreasonable searches and seizures by law enforcement. Like anything else, this is open to interpretation over time, but one fundamental element of reasonable search and seizure is a specific search warrant. With this amendment in place, law enforcement cannot come into a private citizen's property without reasonable suspicion that someone's in danger or with a search warrant. One way to remember the Fourth Amendment is to recall this slogan: "No cop's gonna knock down my door thanks to Amendment number 4. The Fifth Amendment concerns the rights of the accused. It ensures that individuals do not have to testify against themselves in a court of law. This is called protection against self-incrimination. It establishes that every citizen is owed the due process of law. This means that fair procedures must be followed by law enforcement and court officials at every step toward potential imprisonment. We will explore this concept in more detail later. The amendment also protects citizens against facing a court case on the same incident twice. This is called double jeopardy, and it is forbidden. The government has one chance to try to convict an individual on an alleged crime. Many people are familiar with the phrase, "I plead the Fifth." Just try to remember that when people say this in court, it is because they want to avoid incriminating themselves. The Fifth Amendment provides for this. The Sixth Amendment promises accused citizens a speedy and public trial. It also provides for the accused the opportunity to confront witnesses in the court of law and offer their own side of the story. Finally, the Sixth Amendment also offers the accused the assistance of counsel or a lawyer at no charge. To remember the Sixth Amendment, try to recall this slogan: "Trial must be fair and quick, thanks to Amendment number 6. Or, think of the acronym SIX-PACKS. The 6 is for the amendment number, the P is for public, and the A is for attorney, the C is for confront, and the S is for speedy. The 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendments, in totality, establish some basic protections in terms of the due process of the law. Think of due process as the proper and fair procedure everyone is owed. This includes habeas corpus, not having to testify against yourself, not being subjected to double jeopardy, the right to an attorney, the right to confront a witness, trial by jury, a public trial, and a speedy trial. All of these go into what is called due process. The 8th Amendment protects U.S. citizens against cruel and unusual punishments. By the way, the Supreme Court has ruled that execution is not cruel and unusual. The 8th Amendment does protect us against torture, though. To remember this amendment, think about this slogan. Torture the Senate could legislate, but it's not allowed under Amendment 8. Finally, the 9th Amendment reads as follows. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. In other words, not all rights are listed in the Constitution, so the people still have other rights not specifically listed in the Constitution. This memory aid may help you to remember the 9th Amendment. People, there is no need to whine when you've got Amendment 9. Remember that the big idea of Principle 5 is that citizens have individual liberties that limit the power of the government. These rights can be seen in the original text of the Constitution, as well as the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments of the Constitution.